This episode of Lawyers Tell All is brought to you by the Intake Academy. Do you know how to cement relationships with more of your ideal clients, get them to commit to you, and send you more referrals than you ever thought possible? Visit www.intakeacademy.com, where you will get the strategies you need to make the most of your marketing and advertising dollars. Plus, develop a team of intake specialists and attorneys who convert more qualified case opportunities and build meaningful relationships with prospective clients. Welcome to the Lawyers Tell All podcast, where Chris Mullins, the preeminent sales and communications consultant in the legal industry, shows you how it looks through lawyers' eyes. Here, innovators in the trenches provide powerful insights that help you connect with new clients, handle the sometimes harsh realities of the legal profession, and embrace the mindsets needed to succeed. Be sure to visit our website at www.lawyerstellall.com. And while you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, lean in, tune in, and let's take a deep dive.
Hello, everyone. It's Chris Mullins with Lawyers Tell All, and today I'm going to interview Matthew Fornaro. Fornaro. I did it good earlier, not now. Okay, Fornaro. And I'm going to let Matthew tell you a little bit about himself. Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Chris. My name is Matthew Fornaro. I'm a business law attorney based in South Florida. I've been practicing law for 22 years. My focus is helping small and medium-sized businesses, particularly in Florida, but I have clients all over the country. 90% of my practice is litigation and 10% is transactional. And my businesses that I help range from solo practitioners or sole proprietors, I should say, to businesses with hundreds of employees.
Okay, and let me ask you this. What made you choose this type of law?
Sure. So I started out in my career doing litigation, and I eventually worked for 200 law firms doing like commercial litigation. And I came to have an opportunity 10 years ago to go to one of the 10 largest law firms in the world and do more commercial litigation, but doing like very niche stuff that I was working on. And I was like, oh, it's all right. Like, what am I going to do 3 years from now? Because, it's going to be like the same place where I am right now. So I decided to go off and start my own law firm instead, because I wanted to be my own boss and not have to deal with like big firm politics and things like that. So my focus was on taking my skill set that I had and helping small and medium-sized businesses, because I felt that they were underserved. And growing up, my dad had a small business and I saw the issues that he dealt with, and I thought that it would be a good spot or a good fit for me to focus on helping those kinds of businesses which are underserved by, I'd say, competent legal professionals regarding business law, particularly litigation.
Okay, well, so what was some of the things that your dad was dealing with there? And you think about this?
Well, just the nuances and the machinations of having a business, like everything from, like having a business plan to having contracts to dealing with payroll to dealing with rent to dealing with all the different issues that, he had his attorney who, was a good guy, but like really wasn't really focused and that much into it. And I could see that, he would have been better served as someone who was more focused and into it and knew more about what's going on, and then particularly understood how small and medium-sized businesses work. So that's how I kind of got focused onto it.
What are some of the different types of the most popular clients that you have that you actually, I don't know how else to say it, so I'll just say it, that you actually enjoy that type of a challenge, let's just say?
Sure. So there's no like real one industry or business size or business type that like I have more of than the other. Maybe a little bit more, I represent more construction related companies and things more than anything else. but it's all pretty much interchangeable. I mean, I like representing all my clients. I like helping them all out. So there's no one particular industry or one that stands out more than the others. I just, I like helping them focus on their business and be able to grow and prosper.
Hmm. So, what are some of the things that you uncovered that seem to be very common in almost all the clients that you have?
Sure. So, a lot of my clients, and I would say businesses in general, people are very eager to get into business and don't really do enough planning ahead of time, particularly like conceptual planning, and they just kind of run to get into business. They register their business online and try to get going as quickly as possible. So one of the things or major things is that a lot of businesses lack like a written business plan and lack operating documents and lack contracts and then lack professionals to work with, like business law attorneys, accountants, bankers, web people. So that's a I would say persistent issue that small businesses and medium-sized businesses deal with, particularly startups, is that they're so eager to get into business and do what it is they want to do that they don't do the due diligence and preparation that's required in order to lay out the roadmap for success for their business ultimately.
So, how do you counsel them on that though? So, what do you
Sure.
say? Yeah.
Yeah. So for businesses that are just starting out, I make sure that we have a written business plan, that we choose the correct business organization that matches their needs and that we do along with their accountant. We make sure that they have all their contracts in place, whether they have employment contracts or whether they have commercial leases or anything like that. And we make sure that everything is done um, regularly and professionally. So they have like their regular corporate meetings and they keep regular corporate documents and they keep regular corporate records and they do everything that's required by whatever jurisdiction they're in. And then if it's an already existing business, I basically retrofit the business to make sure that they comply with all the things that they should have started out complying with.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of work for the business owner. Are you doing some of the heavy lifting for them?
Yeah, I do the heavy lifting. I mean, what I want to do is I want to focus on doing the legal stuff and the law stuff, and then let them focus on doing the business stuff and make business decisions. So I want to take as much off their plate as possible regarding their business, regarding legal issues, and just let them focus on the business part of their business.
Okay. And so is this, do you also do like employment law? Is that part of this too, or no?
Yeah, a little bit of that, such as employment contracts and issues dealing with employees and independent contractors and things like that.
Yeah. And so is that an area that seems to be very popular?
Yes. It's always, I mean, employment law is always popular because there's always employment issues because businesses try to categorize and classify W-2 employees as 1099 employees and try to do way too much regarding that issue. And they get into a lot of trouble, for lack of a better term, doing
Yeah.
that. And then there's always issues with hourly wage issues with employees
Yep.
or independent contractors. And then, just regular employment issues where you need an employee handbook depending on how many employees you have, because you have to have employment policies in place regarding like you have, an HR department or an HR professional if you don't have a department and things of that nature.
Right. So, what about like the whole remote virtual movement that kind of has accelerated since COVID for, you know, team members, employees, whatever you're calling them? Has that been a popular uh issue?
Yeah, I mean, as long as the people do the work, that's the main point. I mean, a lot of employers or a lot of clients I deal with are in person and a lot of remote, and a lot really don't care where their employee is if they don't have to be there in person, as long as they're getting the work done. If they're not getting the work done, then that's an issue. And I know that that's a hot topic right now, particularly with the federal government of employees returning back to the workplace. because a lot of people have been abusing remote employment, and a lot of there's been a lot of consequences for that abuse, a lot of unproductivity, a lot of uh overpaid people. But for the most part, for my clients, they keep their employees on a, I don't want to say tight leash, but they keep them pretty close. So there's not really an issue with remote employment. And if there is, we take care of it.
Mm. So when you say it's a hot topic, like what, so you said a little bit about what's going on, but what are the different things, mistakes businesses are making with their remote team members that they need to think about and do differently?
Well, one of the things is that they have to make sure that the employee is actually working and is accountable and has some kind of demonstrative metrics to show that they're actually doing the work. So depending on what the employee does or what the employee's task is or what the job entails itself, you have to have markers or some kind of touchstone that they can show that they're doing the work, and just, not it's Friday at 5, what happened the entire week. Like, that's not how to run things. You have to have, like, people use like Slack or other things to have like a work board kind of thing where they collaborate with other employees back and forth to show that they're actively doing work, or they have routine like Zoom meetings or Teams meetings with the rest of their employees or their employers to show what they're doing and talk about what they're doing. So that's one of the things that employers do, is that they make sure they're not being like Big Brother, but they're making sure that their employees are actually doing what they're supposed to do, and make sure that they have deadlines on their tasks, and make sure that they can show that they're doing their tasks, as opposed to just taking their word for it and then at the end of the week trying to figure out what the hell happened the entire week.
Oh, okay. So the businesses that are doing what you just said, trying to figure it out at the end of the week, those are probably the businesses that get into trouble and reach out to you.
Correct, because they have they have no idea what's going on Monday through Friday. They just know at the end of the week they get like whatever work product dumped on them or whatever hours dumped on them or whatever, where then they have to be like, well, was the person really working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or they just make all this stuff up on Thursday and Friday?
So what happened? What's going on that makes that business owner think about that? Like,
Well, because the abuse of remote employment for the last 5 years since COVID has been rampant, and it's been documented, particularly right now, like with the Trump administration, with government employees, not private sector employees, but government employees abusing the privilege to work remotely. And that's obviously also taken place in the private sector as well. So that's one of the issues where, there's a reconciliation coming, where you see companies like Apple and Google telling all their employees that they have to return to work because they've seen the downward productivity, the lack of productivity since things went to work at home versus work in the workplace. And that's why you see the market correcting itself by making people come back to work, or, like I say, have demonstrable metrics to show that they're actually working remotely, as opposed to just, doing whatever. And then there's also an issue where, there's another trend where people have multiple jobs because they, have multiple full-time remote jobs, because they don't have to show that they're actually working. So they're over here on this computer doing this thing, over here doing this thing. And, it's not great for either company, because you essentially are, you're paying for a full-time employee, you're not getting a full-time employee. So that's another issue that has been going on, that's getting, dealt with in the marketplace.
So, what's interesting to me is, at least in my experience, my 30 years experience, well, probably a little bit more than that, but 30 years with law firms, is how many firms, and it's not just law firms, but they don't really hold their team accountable anyway. just in general, even people that work in the office, so they don't have a lot of accountability measurements and KPIs, and that they're really holding people accountable for, and or even giving proper training. So when it comes to the remote team, they're definitely not doing it there, because they don't do it anyway, but they definitely don't know how to do it. They think it's different, but it's not different. And so now it seems like what you're saying, they're being forced because they have to do it the right way. So now they're being forced to do what they should have been doing all along, which is having those metrics and accountability and measurements and all of that. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, and it's also, I mean, it's trial by error. I mean, 5 years ago, this wasn't an issue we even talk about, and then COVID made it an issue, and now, remote work is part of, the American business ethos now. So, I mean, it's here to stay. It's just what scope is it and what capacity is it going to be?
Mm.
From, at the height of COVID, it was 100%. And now that, COVID's not really around anymore as much as it was, now that people are returning back to the workplace and stuff, now it's majority back in the workplace, and then, maybe a day remote or 2 days remote, whereas before it was 5 days remote. So maybe we'll get to the point where there's no days remote anymore, or maybe they keep a hybrid schedule. It just depends on the productivity. I mean, I'm sure that the productivity is much higher at work in person than it is when it's a remote day.
Yeah, I think so. I think overall it is, but if you have remote workers from other countries, what about that? What kind of challenges does that present?
Well, that's another thing that's developed too. That was in place a little bit before COVID. I mean, I remember going to a Florida bar convention and seeing remote employees like back in like 2005 or 2006. They were talking about like offshore employees in like Guatemala and stuff like that. And I was like, that's crazy. But I mean, over the last 20 years, that's really been a growing industry, and particularly the last 5 years. And it's a thing where, I mean, the scale and the economics of labor are much less to have, a Filipino professional versus having an American professional work on something. I mean, I know one of the businesses I work with rely heavily on the Philippines, and they have one person in particular I know has 9 Filipino assistants working for essentially, God, it's under $5 per hour each, and they're doing 40 hours worth of work, where if that was an in-person employment in the United States, even, slightly above minimum wage or a salaried employee, that would be exponentially more than they're paying right now. So the use of foreign, the use of foreign professionals and paraprofessionals in remote working is obviously something that's growing as time goes on. Even if the American workplace is going back to work in person whenever, the assistants and the back office assistants and the overnight assistants and all stuff like that other countries offer is just growing each year.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I think it's great to have that as an alternative, but I don't know if you probably hear about this, but I kind of feel from my side of the fence that there is abuse with how businesses treat overseas workers, remote workers.
Well, there is. I mean, obviously it's out of sight, out of mind. So, I mean, there's not, the in-person human aspect is not there. I mean, I'm not yelling at someone in person, or I'm not even yelling at someone I met. I'm, reprimanding or disciplining or, telling someone they're not doing a good job virtually across the other side of the world, on someone who I've never met, I'm never going to meet in my life. So obviously it's a different aspect than it is for an in-person employee.
Are there any tools that you recommend businesses use to help manage remote workers?
Just like things like the the various different Google apps that are out there,
Mm.
Slack. I mean, the different um, different collaborative tools are great because you can see who's doing what on there. You know, there's other things you can use as far as time management things. If people keep track of their time with, like in the legal world, we all have different case management systems and stuff like that. And the same kind of case management systems can be applied to outside the legal world for, keeping track of your time, keeping track of your productivity, having, like a Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive or something like that that has all the documents and all the work product in it that your team is working on or you're working on. So that way everyone has access to it. Everyone can see what kind of work is being done.
Mhm. Right. What's your ideal client?
My ideal client is, a small to medium sized business owner or someone who has something new in business who's located in South Florida, who not necessarily is a startup, but could be in business for some time and is dealing with issues with their business, whether it's money issues, labor issues, rent issues, anything that has to do with the machinations of having a business is who my ideal client is, because I help them either in the transactional stage where we make documents better or we make documents to begin with, and I help them in the litigation stage where if they're sued or they need to be sued, we can take care of it.
Yeah, okay. And anything else that you want everybody to know? Any advice or guidance that you can give, or top 5 things to do or not do?
Yeah, just as a business owner or someone who owns a business, your job is to focus on your business, and you need to have a cadre of professionals who help you and alleviate the burden from you. So as a business owner, you need to work with a business law attorney, you need to work with an accountant, you need to work with a banker. They're not luxuries, they're necessities. And you need to plan into your business plan and into your budget of having those professionals with you, because they'll alleviate the burden of having to deal with all of those issues and allow you to focus on just work and focusing on your business itself. So that way, if your business fails to succeed, it's based on your business acumen. It's not based on some technicality or something else that one of us will deal with on your behalf.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, how can folks get in touch with you?
Sure. So the easiest way to get in touch with me is to go to my website, which is fornarolegal.com, which is my last name, legal.com. It's got a link to all my contact information, all my social media, all my videos, all my white papers, all my blogs. And it's a great resource for small businesses. It answers a lot of questions. And if anyone needs me, they can just check out my email address or my phone number and contact me on the website.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, I'm glad that we talked today. It's terrific.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
All right. So long. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Lawyers Tell All, where Chris Mullins takes you on a journey with lawyers in the trenches who show you the realities of what it takes to succeed in this chaotic, crowded, ever-changing profession. Remember to visit our website at www.lawyerstellall.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on Lawyers Tell All.